everybody, and welcome back to Conexkt Days number 5. I cannot believe that it's already our last day here. What a week we have had. I really hope that you've learned a lot, and if you've been around for every session, we would love it if you shoot us a message. Today, our last 2 sessions, we will be talking about building digital communities as well as the future of food. These sessions will be followed by a short conclusion remark by Johan. If you are tuning in for the first time this week, my name is Tiffany and I have been your host for the week. I'm connecting live from Canada where I work with Conexkt to design impactful experiences. And I really hope this week has been and will be impactful for you and your organizations. Thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you to all of you that used Conversation Starter. We had over 76 conversations that happened throughout the week and 184 people that signed up. It was such a great way to build great connections with the other people attending. If you missed out on any of our sessions, don't worry, they are already uploaded onto our YouTube channel, where we will put the link in the chat below. As well, we have Q&As throughout the sessions, so if you do have any questions, just click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and send us your questions, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. I also want to acknowledge the effort of all of the Conexkt members and the guest speakers that joined us throughout the week. The theme of this series is Innovation Crisis. Our team wanted to take some time to reflect upon the events during 2020 and its impact on innovation. We hope that you've learned from these sessions, have great ideas to ponder and tools to help you navigate these challenging times. Now, today, we are delighted to have with us Emilie Dellecker as well as Corey Nobile. On this event website, you can find their more about our speakers and their LinkedIn profiles. Now, for our first speaker, Emilie is our very own creator of magic here at Conexkt. Thank you so much for joining us, Emilie. Feel free to pop on your video there.
Yeah, I'm trying. It says,
hello.
It says that, can you hear me? Hello. Yeah. Hello, Tiffany.
For this first part, I would also like to welcome Dr. Johan Rodui. For this session, we will have a conversation between Johan and Emilie, and then we'll be bringing on to the next speaker.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Emilie.
Hi, Johan. Thank
How
you
are
for
you?
having me today. Good, good.
Hey, thank you for being with us. And it's getting late in Switzerland.
Yes, it is. It's 8:30 p.m. I'm with my beloved glass of wine for the evening and with friends. So it's going to be great.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, for this first session here, we'll do a bit different than we did the last couple of days where we had speakers that shared their slides. Here would be more of about a conversation. And I'd like you to ask you a few questions, and I'd like to start with explaining to us and our audience what it is that you do at Foodhack, and maybe what is Foodhack?
Yes, sure. So Foodhack is a community-driven platform for food entrepreneurs and innovators, where we highlight, connect, and inspires people who want to change the food system. And we do that by highlighting and sharing newsletter, podcast, and content. We have a space for startup to share their product and get the highlight they deserve. And we also connect entrepreneurs throughout the globe through the meetups that we organize across what we call the Foodhack chapters. That is for Foodhack. And I am in charge of the community building and community expansion. So I'm mainly responsible for helping our Foodhack ambassadors, so people who organize meetups for us, who take the Foodhack meetup license to organize a meetup across the different cities, and making sure that our brand I mean, that every chapter reflects our brand correctly and make sure that everybody feels at home when they join a meetups, a Foodhack meetup.
And how many chapters do you have right now?
We have 16 chapters.
Nice.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, we have chapters in Europe mainly, but also in India with Delhi and Mumbai, and recently in Vancouver as well. So very happy the way it's progressing, and more than I think the number of the chapters, it's the quality and the commitment of the ambassador that is really exciting.
Yeah, and my intel is telling me that the ambassador for Foodhack Vancouver will be here in the second session after you and Corey. So we'll have to
it is my understanding as well.
To stay tuned and learn more about this. So yeah, so and why did you decide to develop such a community-driven platform? Because you could have gone the other way around and build a traditional media company. So why did you choose to change the strategy here?
I think community is in the DNA of Foodhack. Yeah, it always been the way that we envision what we wanted to do, and I think it dates back from 2016 when Armen and Camille, the two co-founders of Foodhack, launched the very first meetup, Foodhack meetup in Lausanne. It came from a community need and demands. So they originally started with organizing 2 hackathons on food traceability and food waste. And after those 2 events, they got people coming back to them asking for more because they wanted to stay connected, they wanted to stay engaged. And so this is how we launched the Foodhack meetup. It was really because the people in our area wanted this kind of format. And then if you look at the media strategy, I think curating and crowdsourcing our content it's a great way for us to keep up with the rate at which media company needs to be right now. You constantly need to put out new content if you want to be competitive. And we're only 3. We have the help of 3 brilliant editors right now, but if we were to create from scratch everything, this wouldn't be possible for us. Another thing I think might be important, or at least is really important for us, is that crowdsourcing and curating the information also help us staying relevant to what the audience wants. So yeah.
I'd like to jump here on a little bit on this, because we had other sessions where it's a bit of a challenge this day to exist even as a company where there's this demand to putting content constantly. And then on the other hand, we're like, well, we want to make sure it's quality content. So how do you manage this to make sure that you have quality content? And also, but I don't know, not falling into the trap of just publishing for the sake of publishing content. I mean, I've heard some, I'm not a social marketing guy, but I've heard some social marketing companies saying like, you need to post on this media 3 times a day, and people starting it, but the content was just irrelevant or not important or not curated. So how do you manage this to ensure like high quality for your audience?
I'm not in charge of creating and curating the content, but something I have seen consistently across the content that is shared by Foodhack is we're constantly asking for feedback. So we let the audience know that feedbacks are welcome, and that anytime if they think that the content is not good, that it's not relevant, they're more than welcome to come back to us and tell us, this is crap. I don't want this new type of content. I don't like your new newsletter. And yeah, of course, negative feedback are always, it can be hard to accept, but it's always good to have. And it helps you really stay on track.
I guess that's why the community is that you're building is ever important.
Yeah.
They're not just like people you sell something to, but they're a community. They're part of the Foodhack family, as I understand. And so I'd like to know more about this community of like, how many people are we talking here? Because I understand you have ambassadors in different places, but then you have probably a newsletter, or you work a lot with Slack. So how many people would say is part of your digital community?
We have actually currently we have 36 ambassadors across the world. And since January, since we launched the Discovery platform, I think we have got like 6,000 users on the website, and probably about 3,000 or maybe more people reading the newsletter. I'm very bad at number. I'm not the one looking at it all the time, but I think it's almost correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, numbers are only tell one part of the story, right?
Yes.
It's just sometimes if you have a couple peoples that are very targeted, or like that are there and invested into your community, is probably more important than hundreds that are just passive or just clicking through and not engaged. So, but I was wondering for you, how much time do you invest managing this digital community? Because it's a big community to manage, and it must be time consuming.
So again, I think it really depends the what you mean by managing the community. If you look at purely,
what do I mean? I mean, we worked on those questions together.
Oh no, but I mean, of course. But if you look at posting or things like this,
Yes.
and making sure that the number of clicks raised, it's actually pretty low. We have one person now who is managing the main social media channel for Foodhack, but. And of course, we have the ambassadors that are working across the different chapters to maintain their social media presence. I would say what we're doing mostly, and what consume most of our time, is really it's more about creating the connection online, and it's facilitating the connection. So we're doing a lot of introduction. It could be on Facebook by connecting people that we know within the network, by email. And it's also making sure that the people know about the meetups and are motivated to join. So it's actually bringing them offline to meet. That's the major part of our work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the important part with when you have meetup around food. It's to actually meet people and eat and feast together. But that has been a challenge with COVID. So how did you guys manage this? I've been part of event where we get a nice little package sent home with goodies. I mean, that's something we should do next. The next event we do at Conexkt is to also have emails from participants and surprise them with something. And I think that's very fun to also bridge the gap between the digital and in-person event. But how did you manage to still organize? Because my understanding is that you still organized meetup around food during the lockdown in Switzerland and around the world.
Yeah, so I was quite afraid at the beginning. We never organized online meetup before the lockdown. And I remember the first meeting we had during the lockdown, and the three of us, Armin, Camille, and I, saying we don't want to push for online event. It's never going to work. It's not going to be the same energy. You cannot share food. It's never going to be the same. And and at first we stayed with that, saying, okay, we're not going to do this. But I mean, it's still there. And so we needed to do something. And so switching to virtual was actually a demand again by people. So we got people asking us, when are you going to organize online events? Please do it. And I think it was a little bit afraid that we did the first one, but actually it went well. Yes, it's not perfect. It's not the same way that you interact with people, but I think it helped people keep the conversation flow going and discussed what they needed to discuss, which is how are we going to innovate during, how are we going to keep up with like our business during this time. And they needed to be inspired, they needed to have responses to those questions, which I think the meetup helped with that. Yeah.
And I think it also tells the story of how much us as human, we need this to connect with others. So the first thing we did was to just go online and connect. Right now there's so much online connection that people are, of course, craving in person. And I can't wait to have, we'll hear a bit more about this later, about the Foodhack chapter in Vancouver, and to actually go in person and see what it's all about. But again, you also started and you launched the Foodhack license program just before the European lockdown.
Yeah.
So how did that impact your expansion?
So at first, well, I had no expectation in terms of the number of chapters that we wanted to open, but I think the way it really impacted the licensing program is that we actually had a lot of quality application coming in during the lockdown, simply because people had time. A lot of people had time to just spend to put a little bit of effort into creating very original application videos. And I think a lot of people rethink their priorities. Some of them even decided to shift their from one business to another, from one job to another. And perhaps we're also lucky because food is central to everybody. And I think it was an issue that it was a topic that was very close to every people's heart during the lockdown. It was, yeah. So becoming a Foodhack ambassador was not something that was out of, it was still seen as an opportunity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that echoes some article I read actually in back in January, when we were not even in Europe and in here in Canada, we were not talking so much about COVID. It was still just in China at the time, but I had some people I know in China were going through the pandemic, and they sent me some articles, and they said that there's three major things that changed with the pandemic and the acceleration of digitalization. Was the food industry. A lot of things went online, distribution, and then was education, and then all the medical system. Yeah. Medical practitioners were online, and remote medicine started to boom more and more. So before we bring Corey up to continue and carry on the discussion, I'd like to ask you one last question. Do you think that every brand and business should invest in digital communities, or are there some brand and businesses where it's not really relevant for them?
I would say yes, definitely. I think it's worth the investment. For me, it's the quickest way. We can take the example of a food product to stay in the topic. It's more easy than ever to launch a food product. You just need to put your, you just need to do your research online, and it's the same thing if you want to get feedback from your consumer. If you are engaged online, if you have a digital community that is engaged, that can give you feedback, it's the quickest way to adapt. And I think it's also the most efficient way to make your consumer and your audience feel that you're listening, that you're actually adapting to what they're saying, because they can quickly see how you adapt, how you change your content, new things that you're going to do. So yeah, I would definitely say go do it. At the beginning, it's a little bit daunting. You're like, okay, I'm talking to myself here. I'm launching a Facebook group. No one is responding. It happens all the time, but then it pays off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, communities start with, I guess you need one first follower. There's actually a great TED talk on this, how the first follower, how to start a movement.
I need to see that.
Yeah, I'll try to find it and put it in. And I think it's very great, and it's very relevant to what you're saying. Is like, you want to start a community, well, find the first follower and then start building and see where it leads. And I also think there's something into it of like first building your community, and then within your community, figure it out like, hey, what type of product we want, what type of service we want. So it's kind of changing even the conversation of how you do business. You're not like seeking out desperately for customers or clients, but you have a community and you try to feed the need of the community.
I think it's also important to show, I mean, being engaged online, it's also a way to show the people that you respect. Of course, if you're doing correctly, if you're meaningful about the way you share your information and how you share it, it's also a way of showing that you're respecting your audience, that you're not taking their time for granted, but you're actually adding value to them. And I think that's something that is that needs to be taken into account when you launch when you want to create your digital community. Don't stick to the like metrics and things like this, but try to actually create value.
Yes. And so I think now we can enough about me talking. I've been talking a lot this week, but would like to welcome Corey to the screen. And I think, Emilie, you'll take it from here and you can introduce us to your guests and why you brought Corey all the way from Boston.
Yes.
Let's see, we'll ask him to start the video live from Boston. And we've posted that link for that TED Talk, how to start a movement.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hi, Corey.
I'll let you guys from here. I'll be back in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go have a coffee here. This is coffee time here in Vancouver.
I get that.
Wonderful.
Hi, Corey. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to finally meet.
Exactly. Yeah. It's actually the first time. So we've been, when Johan asked me to select a speaker for the thematic about digital communities, I had my bucket list, and then I turned onto Armand for advice, and turns out we had the same person on our list. So
honored. Yeah, Armand's awesome. So
we're
pretty happy to hear that. Don't know if I'm qualified, but
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the people who are listening and don't know Corey, you're the founder of Impact Snacks, a plant-based startup founded in 2016. And you very recently launched the world's first snack company that reclaims 100% of its carbon footprint. It's a superfood bar packaged in a home compostable wrapper. And we've known you at Foodhack because your product was on our discovery platform. And then I learned about your super successful Kickstarter campaign. And then your TikTok channel as well. You had a lot of tractions. but there's much more about your brand. And I think this is what I would like to discuss with you tonight. But can you maybe in a few words explain a little bit more about your product, what it is and what it stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, we want to change the way people look at single-use products, right? And that's everything from, in the food world, kind of displacing animals from the supply chain, to actually finding alternatives to really, really damaging materials like petroleum-based plastics. In 2016, the company actually had a different name, and we were just really focused on sustainable nutrition. And when my co-founder and I went to college together 2 years later, this was 2018, we kind of hit a hard stop in what we were doing. And we decided to apply the same philosophies we had in creating sustainable nutrition to our broader supply chain. And after doing a lot of research, we kind of thought that if we could make a fast-moving consumer good sustainable, we can make anything sustainable. And we were mostly right, because fast-moving consumer goods, they have naturally low margins, they're usually a volume play, single use, all this stuff that really builds a picture of something that should be an inherent contradiction. But after a very long time, over a year of R&D and investing every dime that we had, dropping out of college, the whole 9 yards, we finally have a line of single-use products that have a circular supply chain that's 250% carbon negative. The packaging is compostable. It looks, feels, and functions like petroleum-based plastic, but you can eat it. Even the inks are made out of vegetables, and it's the first of many products that we're going to be making as we kind of go down this path of replacing everyday essentials with more sustainable alternatives.
Yeah, it's just awesome. For me, it ticked all the boxes in terms of what I want to feed my children with in the future. So congratulations. It's just great.
Thank you.
But then it seems to be that within your brand, so there's the strong aspect of sustainability. You want to do something for the world. Do you have like core values that you could within your brand that you can share with us? What are the core value of Impact Snacks?
For sure. Yeah. So there's the more obvious ones, right? That we kind of want to leave the earth a little bit better than we found it, as cliche as that sounds. We want to treat waste as a resource. We really think that, the transition to circular economy needs to happen now. It's inevitable that it's going to happen, because the alternative is, it's pretty grim and pretty bleak. But, at the end of the day, one of our biggest kind of founding principles was we don't want to be a paper straw, meaning there are so many noble and genuinely altruistic concepts like the paper straw that set out to tackle a really, really big problem, but they're never adopted at scale because they fail to match the functionality of the products they're trying to replace. And, sustainability, people want to make more sustainable decisions, but you can't force them to compromise on quality or price. And that really is kind of at the forefront of everything we do. We kind of design all of our products and some software that we're self-launching, which is, I know, ironic from talking to a lot of people about it, but we designed it all, in a way where even if you didn't care about sustainability, you'd probably still choose that product if there was a one-to-one. That is just really core to us. And some yogic principles are kind of guide our corporate culture. We're really big on meditation, practicing mindfulness. So there's a whole host of things, but comes down to quality, circular economy, and mindfulness.
Okay, great, thank you. And now we get into the topic of tonight, the digital communities. Let's get on to it. You've got an impressive traction on your Kickstarter campaign. I think you reached your goal within like 10 hours, or you overpassed it after 12 hours. There's many Kickstarter campaigns will have great success, but did you plan for it, and how did you do it internally? What did you had tactics, strategy behind it? How did you manage this?
Yeah, we weren't actually supposed to launch on Kickstarter. We were supposed to launch in February, but we're not unique in this case. But
You were
coronavirus kind of threw a wrench in things. So when we delayed our launch, we really had to sit down and think, how do we want to go to market? What makes the most sense? How can we best offset the costs associated with delaying launch several months? And we landed on Kickstarter because one, it's not just like a mission-driven platform, but one huge plus is allows you to kind of stress test your supply chain because you're not tied to 1 to 2 day shipping times, right? If you have a 30-day campaign, you don't have to start shipping until 30 days. So we kind of did it little by little just to make sure that we had kind of all of our boxes checked. So there was a lot of positives that or perceived positives that led us to believe that Kickstarter was the best place to go. But once we were there and we knew that that's how we're going to go to market, we really just focused on the video and telling a good story because with some companies it works, but it's usually really, really hard to use ads to grow a reward-based crowdfunding campaign. The unit economics just don't work whatsoever. But so yeah, it was all organic. And we thought if we could tell a story in a powerful enough way, share it on channels in creative ways, like our TikTok, LinkedIn, things like that, then we thought it could scale just, product-led growth, just by word of mouth and people being excited about what we're doing. And that is thankfully what happened, but no paid acquisition, nothing like that.
Well, everything organic. Yeah, I think we share the same love for organic growth with Foodhack. I don't think that it makes any sense to, yeah. But you mentioned the content that you shared on TikTok and on LinkedIn. I remember the video of your co-founder eating the snack bars with the wrapper, and I was wondering who had this brilliant idea, because I think this marked a lot of people around the web. Like I remembered it on my LinkedIn feed, then I discovered it on TikTok. So yeah, who had this idea?
So that was my co-founder, Nick. We were actually in Pittsburgh visiting a contract manufacturer in our hotel room. And it was after a long day. We're all kind of on our laptops getting some work done. And Nick comes out of the bathroom and he's like, some weird look on his face. We're like, what? He's like, I just ate the wrapper. We're like, what'd you do? And he's like, I just ate the wrapper. Because we knew you could technically eat it, but again, we don't force or compromise. So it literally is designed to look, feel, and function like plastic. So it's not fun to eat, right? The fact that you can eat it is more important. But anyways, so we were pretty shocked, but we realized it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. It's just a little bit chewy. But yeah, we just posted that video. It was his first TikTok he's ever made, and it went viral and all this good stuff and drove a really good amount of traffic. But
so no
kind of came out of nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in terms of it, you said that it went viral. Do you have any tips or guidelines internally of what type of content you're sharing on TikTok, or do you have different guidelines for different platforms? You're mainly using TikTok, and I know personally you're on LinkedIn. Do you have different strategy? How? Yeah, it seems to be pretty spontaneous from what I understand, but.
Right. Well, there's a fun way of thinking about it that's kind of led a lot of what we do. And I forget who said this, but if you go to a circus and you see someone on a unicycle, it's whatever, and you kind of write it off, even though it might be cool for a little bit. If you go to a circus and you see a grizzly bear, it's like, okay, that's pretty cool, but it's not a big deal. But if you see a grizzly bear, on a unicycle, then your mind's blown, right? So you have to take something that, it might be cool as a standalone, maybe like a snack that's extremely good for the planet, good for you, all this great stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of brands claiming to be good for the planet and good for you. And, so then we had to pair that with kind of that person who'd be using the unicycle, which is just this young person who should definitely be in school. That's Nick. He has no business being in business, and kind of having him eat the wrapper. It really kind of shocked people because it's absurd. You shouldn't. No tradition kind of leads people to believe that that's possible. So that's kind of led a lot of what we do. We're very reckless with memes. We say things that would probably get flagged at most professional marketing meetings. We're not professional at all. But our goal is always to just show someone something that they've never seen, because if not, you're just another blip on their screen that will be forgotten, right? And if you're not involving someone too, then again, you're just another blip. And that's why, late night shows, kind of going down, and it's just another tiny bit of content. And at the end of the day, people don't feel like they're connected, and it really isn't that different. So kind of a roundabout way of saying that, yeah, really got to make people say, oh gosh, what are they doing? Maybe a little bit alarmed, definitely shocked. That's the goal. So
yeah, you need to be kind of, yeah, impactful, but still relevant and linked to what you do, right? Yeah. And how much do you share? Do you have like a number in mind? And do you have metrics? How many times do you share per week, per day?
Right. Yeah. So on Instagram, it's almost every single day.
Okay.
But on TikTok and LinkedIn, we're kind of revamping some of our strategies there, just in terms of like frequency. So, and for my personal LinkedIn, I'm on kind of like a cleanse from social media for a little bit as we wrap up some fundraising stuff and take some time to build out the team, do some hiring. But yeah, so I mean, when you have a platform like Instagram it's a content saturated platform, meaning there's more content being produced than the demand and consumption of content, right? Or demand for, yeah. So what that means is not only, are your posts not going to be shared with a huge audience that hasn't discovered you yet, it's not even going to hit all of your followers. And it's the same way with Facebook and in Twitter. But the two content deficient platforms right now are LinkedIn and TikTok. Meaning, so if you have something that can really shock people, right? You have like grizzly bear on a unicycle, people will see it. It's going to do well. So we're kind of building this like really, really deep content calendar filled with, I guess I'll just say reckless things that we're going to be posting that I think really conveys the message that we're trying to, spread in a really positive way. Because at one point, I can let my like existential dread kind of pile up and look at all the bad things that's going on with the environment, and I mean that's really putting it lightly. And I can feel like this huge sense of urgency that sometimes can spill over onto my keyboard and then onto someone else's screen in a way that seems really negative, even if it's something that's more like unconscious, right? But I mean, I'm not appealing to my base, right? I'm not appealing to people that already believe this. So negativity is not going to work in bringing anyone over and getting anyone to change their mind. So instead, we're going for more, humor, kind of shock and awe, seeing that things are possible, seeing that, it's sort of like when people realize that Beyond Burgers don't suck, right? We're trying to do that for a lot of things in the world of sustainability. So yeah, revamping the strategy, but it's going to be daily posting on all platforms.
And is it going to be like, is it going to be mainly through you on the video and Nick? Because you were both, Nick was quite present on the video, right? The TikTok video. Is he creating the content? Are you creating the content? Is someone creating it for you? How does it work internally?
Yeah, so our content team, they're pretty much all students actually. So we've done some stuff, but we kind of handed the reins over to some awesome people. So our head of brand, Matt Hurd, kind of coordinates all of it, and he's unreal. He's like right on the edge. He understands like very like innately like what people need to see, how to convey a message as it relates to something big that happened yesterday and how that's going to change tomorrow. It's really crazy how he just like naturally knows what to put out there and when. And yeah, and it's definitely a gift. And he manages two people, one that focuses more on their job is literally to make memes and joke around people on the internet. It's a great job. And the other person's job is to make TikTok videos. And that individual is actually an influencer himself, Derek Sullivan. He's got 300,000 plus followers. And because at some point we realized, for something like TikTok, where a lot of time has to go into each video, more so than maybe an Instagram post. And I'm generalizing there, but some people just have a system down, but the people that have that system down the best are the influencers that we're paying $100 here and there to promote, product, right? So if we're going to pay, why instead of paying them $100 to promote a product, why don't we just hire them for X amount per week to run our entire content arm, and so we're sort of becoming like a publishing company. That's kind of the goal. I think that every direct-to-consumer company should be, every consumer-facing brand should be a publishing company, where if you strip away all the product and everything, you just leave the media, it should be something that could generate revenue. And that really is our goal. And we're kind of filling, too many young people. We need some expertise coming in, but it's worked so far.
I like this idea of every CPG should become a media company on its own, and it should work. Yeah, I like it. I think that the audience now has understood that you're pretty engaged on social media, like on TikTok and LinkedIn at least, and that you're doing a great work of engaging your community there. But there's something more that you're doing, and that I think is super interesting, is that you let the consumer choose the way they interact with the brand through the way they pay for it and the way they choose, they select their impact, right? What's the plan with the impact stories? How is it going to work out? And why did you set up that? I'm passionate about this part of your of Impact Stacks.
Awesome. Yeah, we actually felt that this was the riskiest part of what we were doing, specifically in letting consumers pay or choose what they pay. And I'll kind of dive into the other, unpack the rest of that. But I'll start with letting them choose what they pay, because it's a little wild. But and we're going to be refining it, right? That was V1. So there's a few reasons. And every quote good thing that we do, right? I'm good is oversimplifying it. Always has to be backed with something that's business sound, right? And I think that's the way sustainability in general has to work. If it was just about doing the right thing, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? There wouldn't be a lot of change to be made. But in terms of price accessibility, oftentimes sustainable goods are price parity just hasn't been achieved, whether it's bioplastics or with certain alternative proteins. It's really hard to be competitive with price. So we had the thought that if we allowed people to choose what they pay and pay us significantly less than our suggested retail price, that would actually be offset by one, well, obviously increased brand loyalty or customer loyalty, but two, a whole host of other consumers that can pay a little bit more and actually want to support a socially conscious brand, an environmentally conscious brand. So, and we were right, and we actually have an increased average order value than if we were to price it normally, because there are so many people that are just choosing to pay more and support what we're doing, while allowing the people that can't afford it to be on the lower end. So it kind of balanced out perfectly. I mean, the AOV is over $3 per bar, which is that's a lot. Again, price accessibility is still there. So that was the rationale there. And then with choosing their impact, we also allow subscribers to kind of offset their footprint. But I didn't want to be the company that just, charges a subscription, then puts a 20% markup on offsets. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll save some of those opinions for another conversation. But so we just charge $1 a month as just just to cover administrative fees and costs. There's credit card fees, all that stuff. And we allow them to develop renewable energy projects, reforest certain areas around the world, create tangible impact, and kind of the combination of reforestation with kind of biodiversity being the goal, and renewable energy projects with the goal being lowering certain communities' dependency on fossil fuels. We're able to, one, sequester existing carbon or remove existing carbon from the atmosphere, while two, preventing new carbon from being created. Carbon is the just general term for greenhouse gas emissions for anyone else that's listening. So it's just, if someone's making this conscious decision to buy better products, they might be someone that wants offsets. Because we know that offsets are, it's becoming an industry that I think is getting a very unhealthy dose of greenwashing. We decided to give them the most cost-effective way to do it.
Yeah. So. You gamified a little bit how people are interacting with your brand, right?
Right. Yeah, we kind of want to quantify some of their impact. So saying okay, we're smaller than small. Your purchase is smaller than small. It's not this massive ocean cleanup project with 20 million in funding. It's $2 to $4 bar depending on what you pay. So it's seemingly insignificant, but after you actually pile it up and see just how much impact they've created, we kind of get a wow is just the common denominator across all feedback. And people get really excited about it, because it's not just, you know, as an example, like the paper industry, right? I mean, it's responsible for cutting down, I think it's a little under 200,000 trees per day. We as a company have planted over 60,000 trees. And, you know, that's only in a couple months, but you could see that it's not nothing compared to such a massive industry. So the idea is that, no, we're not going to be the only ones to do this, but if we can show people that little changes actually do something, you know, baby steps are still steps, then it kind of encourages a lot of positive thinking. Because there's this phenomenon, and I forget what it's called, that it actually unfortunately occurs in homeless populations, where when people kind of, quote, decide that they give up, when people, that the shift happens, it's statistically almost impossible for them to pull themselves out of homelessness. Well, I think that same phenomenon is actually being observed, you know, across, you know, just the masses with sustainability, where there's so much doom and gloom. You know, it's like the point of no return is in 5 years, and we've killed, you know, 2/3 of wildlife in the past 50 years. People just don't think they can do anything. But if we as a collective, quote, give up, then there is no turning back, right? So by gamifying it, by showing how just the little things are actually moving needles, we've just had such a positive, such a huge amount of positive feedback come from it. So yeah, we're gonna keep it up and keep iterating. It's not where we want it to be, but
yeah, I actually think this is it's just a great way of engaging people and making, yeah, as you said, like make them feel that they're doing something. Even like the action of purchasing and eating a snack bar, it's doing something. So yeah. For the story, my husband is all about gamification and the environment. So he's a huge fan of impact snacks as well. And he wanted me to ask you the question: do you think that gamification is going to has the I can't remember what he said. It was about is gamification gonna have is gonna be the new tool for conservation? Do you think this is something that we could use for conservation, gamification?
Really good question. Kind of like the new tool. I like that approach to the question. I don't know if there's going to be, and I'm not trying to get into the semantics. I don't think there's going to be like the tool or a single tool, but I do think that
it has the potential. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Making it fun for consumers and is super important. And an example of how you can gamify things that everyone thought were completely boring and terrible is what Superhuman did to emails, right? No one loves clearing out their inbox, but a game designer and a game developer created Superhuman, and now you can go through it in a heartbeat, and it's fun. It's weird, right? It's weird how enjoyable it is. And if you can kind of recreate that feeling with the world of sustainability and creating tangible, like real change, then that's really positive. You know, so I absolutely yes.
And yeah, something that maybe you can share a little bit about is the fact that it seems that your audience and every people who relates to your brands, it's really much more than a brand. It's a movement. People feel like they're part of the movement. It's probably because the core value that it stands for, as well as the way that you have people interacting with your brand. But is there something else? Is there something more? Is there another thing that you would think this is why people really relates to our brand? Is it something with your tone and voice, or do you think this is really the core value, what you stands for?
For sure, and I think this. I touched on some of this earlier, so tell me to shut up if I get redundant. But a lot of this credit goes to Matt Hurd and Aiden actually as well, because they've kind of helped us develop this brand voice that you know, it's not navel gazing, but it's informative and it's funny, and it's such a weird combination, but it just works, and it's they have such a good sense of kind of like just the pulse of like culture right now, and they just get it. And I think that there's so many brands that mean really well, but they kind of like talk down to consumers. In the way that they tell people to make better decisions. It's almost like saying like what you're currently doing sucks, or you suck for not doing this, when in reality, most of the time it's just a lack of knowledge, right? It's a lack of, and for example, like when I was in middle school and high school, I wasn't super eco-conscious, and I'll admit that. It's not because I didn't care. If someone asked me, do you want to contribute to climate change? I'd say, of course not. But I didn't know. If you don't know, you can't act. And it was only once I started to learn these things that it was really positive. And you know, it's just been it's been a work in progress to find the right tone that, you know, if you can make someone laugh, if you can make someone say, oh, wow, and send it to someone because it's a mind-blowing fact, then I think your brand will do a really good job of maybe having people feel like involved in the conversation, which is the ultimate goal, involvement over anything. So.
Have you been testing a lot of format and a lot of type of content before finding your own tone and voice? Yeah.
Oh yeah. We actually have a few different like mock-up or like fake Instagrams too, that like we post things to just to and then send it to some friends. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And obviously that's never as accurate or as beneficial as just posting it to our actual feed, but for sure, we don't stop. And probably won't. So.
That's good. You always need to keep on trying and testing and receiving feedback. I think it's also a great way to improve, right?
Yeah,
oh,
sure.
I can see Johan is back.
Yes, I'm back. I finished my coffee and I followed the conversation. And we had some question coming in the Q&A and in the chat, and I just want to bring some before it's already almost the hour. So before we wrap up, there was one question was more a technical question about Corey, what tool you use to plan your content, and you answer that you use Notion. So I think it's a tool that we also try to use and implement. I think it's a great tool. And then there was another question. I think you guys kind of answered. Do you think that was my question. Do you think every company needs to actually become a media or a production company to even exist? You have to create so much content, right? And Emilie, I think you guys started also from even more from communication agencies before coming to Foodhack. But the last question, and then we'll wrap up from the audience here. It's for Corey, what was the starting point of your concept? What is the product that you were interested in, or was it a passion for making an impact? What was the trigger point that launched your entrepreneurial journey?
The eureka moment. Gotcha. Yeah, so I'd love to say there was just this like one defining moment, and then everything was clear, and then we found exactly what we wanted to do for forever and ever. But my co-founder and I had been starting businesses together since we were in 6th grade. Best friends, just and we had one of our businesses was called GeoProtein. We were making sustainable nutrition, and we were very focused on sustainable nutrition because we knew how kind of broken the food system was. That was something that really interested us. And then once we started learning more about how unsustainable supply chains are and kind of the rest of the world, we decided to apply the similar philosophies that we had for nutrition to our broader supply chain. And we really just hit stop on everything and took like a year to do a ton of R&D and kind of build the business, rebuild it brick by brick, just in a far more sustainable fashion. And once we had done so, we decided to rebrand to Impact Snacks instead of just GeoProtein. We thought it far better communicated the shift that we had made and represented all that we had learned kind of along the way.
Nice. It's very well. And yeah, love the website and love the work you guys are doing. And you too, Emilie, love Foodhack. We'll hear more about it in the last session. So thank you, both of you, for taking the time to join in this conversation, this week-long conversation. And before we hit the last session, I'd like, I think Tiffany has some announcement. Yeah, and thanks again, and stay around for the last session.
Thank you, Johan, for having us.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank you so
for
much.
joining.
Yeah,
Yes,
and thank you, Emily, as
so
well.
much, speakers and Johan, and thank you so much for joining us for our first session of the day here at Conexkt Days. We will be having a short break and we'll resume at 12:30 Pacific time. The last session is on future of food. We will see you shortly.